wanted to talk about the topic of anxiety. And as a matter of fact, I'm feeling a little anxiety myself right now because I get a little anxious before these live interviews with butterflies in the stomach. But anxiety can also be much more serious. I've known people who have had to stop driving or maybe stay at home for several days in a row because of their anxiety. And one thing I've learned about anxiety is that it's so irrational that you cannot talk someone out of it. You can't talk yourself out of it. You can't talk someone else out of it. So being that you can't logic your way out of anxiety, what are some good techniques that can be used to help relieve this pressure of anxiety that people feel?
Actually, some people would dispute that. They would say,
oh yeah, okay.
So cognitive behavioral therapy uses a lot of rational thinking and logic to work with anxiety, the causes of anxiety. So with some people that does work. So we can examine our thoughts sometimes in retrospect or even in the moment and kind of go, that's not really true. The sky isn't falling right now. But other forms of anxiety in other people don't always respond to that. So some people are very somatic oriented, right? So if you have them take some slow rhythmic breathing or ground themselves in their body, that can relieve anxiety. And other people are going to use other methods. So there's usually, with anything, there isn't just one way to do something.
Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it might not work.
Or the friends that I've talked to. I mean, I've been in a position where I've said, this is okay and you're not in danger and whatnot. And the danger signals are going off for them. And, it doesn't matter what the logic is.
Yeah, usually if someone isn't ready to think a certain way, you can't just do it in the moment. So much of anxiety work involves knowing that we'll be anxious and feeling maybe a little bit out of control. And then we practice ahead of time. So with anxiety disorders, training and practice work. Preparation, because usually anxiety is about the future. It is about the present when it's about performance, but a lot of times it's about the future. We're imagining something bad is going to happen, or we might know it's going to happen and we start revving up ahead of time. So preparation and training is a big part of anxiety treatment. The other part of anxiety treatment, of course, is things like systematic desensitization. Right. So,
like what would be an example of that?
Phobias are part of the anxiety cluster, right? So, when people don't want to get on an elevator or get on an airplane or maybe be around people now, one standard treatment that takes a lot of time is where you watch people getting on the elevator and watch them getting off, and you pair that slow process with relaxation techniques.
So this go ahead.
Yeah, so it isn't just giving a lecture to somebody saying, it's really rare that elevators crash. You should get over it. So systematic desensitization is working cognitively, but also somatically for people to pair the anxiety or put a sense of calm, like breathing techniques or other methods next to the symptoms, right? With the idea that eventually that will win out.
Yeah, this is a really interesting concept that I'd never heard before, is preparing for the anxiety, because usually it's looked at in the moment, like, oh no, I or myself is feeling anxiety now. What do we do?
Yeah.
So I kind of like this idea of being able to work on it before it comes up.
People that prepare and plan in general are going to do better than people that just avoid. So one of the strongest coping skills with anxiety or things that make us anxious is avoidance, right? And a lot of times that just works if we have another option. So if you don't want to get on an airplane, you might drive. But with many anxiety issues, you can't avoid it. You can't avoid the situation, or you can't avoid the thinking, or you can't avoid the person. So that's when you really have to do something. Medication sometimes makes sense for people. Right?
Yeah. Well, that can put the brakes on in the moment.
In the moment, and there are longer term anxiety medications too. So I like to say you can medicate and meditate.
Oh, you've got the best catchphrases.
But I don't, I'm not a psychiatrist or an MD. I don't do the medication, but I do sometimes recommend that that's the way to go.
And Middle Way Health does have a psychiatrist on board currently as well, right? Yeah. So Middle Way Health has a little bit of everything. As a group of people that offer different things in psychotherapy, depending upon what the needs are.
That's correct.
Yeah. So medication could be worked out with her, perhaps. But I also love this notion of anxiety being based in a future thought that you're having, that something bad is going to happen. So my anxiety with doing lives, or when I was skydiving, for example, I would get so nervous beforehand, but then as soon as I jumped out of that airplane door, I was totally fine. Same thing with the lives. Once I get here, I feel fine. But it's that future thought. So how should we be looking at this this idea of anxiety being a future thought? So could we work on that mentally then?
Yeah, we should notice anyway, like what we think the future is and how we work with future and time. So this can be anxiety just thinking about future, not knowing what to do or what's going to happen. So that, so some anxiety is very deep, which is actually fear, right? Well, I should mention that anxiety is a nice way of saying fear. So a big part of fear is not just something bad's going to happen, but we don't know what's going to happen.
So we had an interesting question pop up here. This is, if you'd like to answer. He says, does Stephen have any, this is Eric Swinson, he's a friend of mine from Burning Man. He says, do you have any comment about the success of psychedelics used in treating anxiety?
I really don't know enough of the science there. I'm aware that some people now are microdosing and using that therapeutically. It's not in my training or my, I'm not doing that. So myself, I've never used psychedelics, so I don't have any personal experience. So I guess I would be a little bit of a wet blanket there because I'd be a little bit cautionary. The problem with things always is dosage, right? And I don't know what the science is around the dosage at this point.
I think because it's not potentially made in a lab, that your dose could be very hard to figure out because you're pretty much guessing. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I guess my overall personality and training is to try to have things as very transferable. So, in other words, can we learn a skill that we can use in almost any situation? Whereas if we're dependent upon something happening, like I need to smoke this or take this or work with this, that may not be available, you see. So then what would we do? So, I always want the most immediate thing that's available, and that's actually uh, our own body and mind. So that's why I like to train people in mindfulness and things they can do without doing a lot of extra steps. Having said that, I recognize for some people that they've used different substances and achieved certain results.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that's not been that's not in my wheelhouse.
I do find it very comforting and exciting to consider, though, that almost all of these problems can be worked with your mind, which is always with you.
Yeah, even an anxious mind is a mind. So it's with us, and our breath is with us. So yeah, I'm biased toward that, but once again, I'm not. And medication can work for some people, and I'm not saying that some people haven't done well with different experimental treatments.
And we have one more question from Connor. He's one of our Sangha members. And this will be a good question to end on, is, are some meditations better for anxiety than others?
The answer is yes. Meditation is like saying exercise. So,
mind exercise.
Well, yeah, I mean, in body too.
True.
So traditionally, you would say body, speech, and mind. So meditation is something where we say we're consciously or making a decision to pay attention to something in particular, and we're noticing the effect of that attention like that. So it's like exercise. So just like there are many different exercises, particularly like in physical therapy, there are many different styles of meditation. In America, we like things fast and simple. So various styles of mindfulness meditation have become very popular. And I teach people that mindfulness meditation, but if I could give a little bit of editorial, many of the mindfulness meditations that are popular or on applications are still fairly superficial, and don't they're not a cure-all for everything like that. So
Yeah.
I'm always suspicious of one miracle cure and one thing. So middle way health, I like to think that we're not a Walmart of techniques, but like a bespoke tailor, where you're trying to actually tailor fit a therapy or treatment to somebody.
And that's important because it goes back to the very beginning of this discussion where I said the logic isn't going to work on me, but it might work for someone else. So it sounds like it's important to have a guide then of some sort to help you find that solution that might work for you.
I think so. I mean, even a blind squirrel gets a nut, they say, but guides or therapists or meditation teachers hopefully make it easier and there's more chance of success. We still have to do the work ourselves on the inside, right?
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you so much for talking about this with us. I know a lot of people are interested in the topic. We had quite a few joining us and commenting, so that was fun. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
All righty. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.